Well, joining us today is Nigel McCarthy, the Director of Education for the Lloydminster Catholic School Division. Nigel, with 2020 quickly wrapping up here, just give us a sense of what are some of the highlights in your mind from this past year for LCSD? What are some things that really stand out to you this past year?
Well, I think one of the biggest highlights of this year was the graduation in 2020 and how that came together in the end and was a real experience and celebration, because it showed that no matter what happens, we can still find joy. And I see that same thing happening as the class of 2021 cross-country skis past my window here today. That there are great moments that we'll find, even though we might be going through a pandemic and even though things might be changing so quickly, that we can find joy in those little things and those celebrations that involve family, that involve faith, and that involve all of our friends.
2020 definitely has been a rough year for many schools across the country. So with LCSD, what have you been most impressed with the amount of changes and adjustments that the LCSD staff have had to make under these unfortunate circumstances with COVID-19?
And I think we lose the point if we don't also point out that one of the things we're most proud of is our students and how they were ready, and how when they came back to school, they came knowing what to do. Students understood that they had a responsibility to each other and to the community, even though they might not be the people who were going to be sick or most affected by this disease. They were the ones who were going to be first to take responsibility for how everyone else was treated. But some of the other highlights with the people who work at LCSD were things like the educational assistants and how they learned to still do speech while online one-on-one with young people, and that's starting so quickly in April and May, being there for students. And our counselors team, who the first Monday after schools closed, they were there for students online and part of their counseling that was offered. And then when our schools opened, how calm our secretaries were, how composed and how reassuring. Our principals and our teachers who came back early and planned and worked so hard so that on the first day of school, it really could be a first day of school that was welcoming for kids. I think about our bus drivers and all the new responsibilities they've taken on and all of the learning they've done. But most of all, I think it's when I walk into a building at the end of a meeting at 10 o'clock at night and our custodians are still there and they're wiping the door handles and they're making sure that every railing has been disinfected, and they're doing things that they've always done well, but that they do in such an extraordinary way to keep us safe and with such caring. I think that's probably the thing of which I'm most proud when I think about that emotion this year.
Within all the schools in the LCSD, what are some things that you want to see improved for 2021?
Well, I was at a meeting last week on Thursday, I believe, where we took stock of all of the data from this fall. And one of the things that was most surprising to us is that when students came back, their literacy and their ability to read and write was still so high. And one of the fears that when young people are away from school is that they lose. And I think one of the things we did really well through the last 8 months was engage parents and talk to parents about reading with their children and about sitting with their children and those traditional things that we do. And I think parents did an extraordinary job with that. And I hope in some way that it actually drew families closer together in a time when we didn't get to go out to all of the things. And it's something I think we're quite proud of, and we've learned something from that. You know, the engagement of our families is one of the most powerful forces in our student success, particularly when they're young. And though we're always looking to get better, we see a lot of good that's come out of the last 8 months that we've lived together.
You know, there are lots of students at LCSD that represent the school division very well, and you spoke highly of the students earlier. You know, whether it's through an athletic scale or a humanitarian scale, how humbling is it for yourself as the director of education to see students take initiatives like this?
Well, I think it makes me feel that we're asking the right questions as young people grow up, and that we're putting the right opportunities in front of young people. And when they work so hard to achieve athletic excellence and have 3 students, as we saw last month, sign with universities for basketball, and these multi-sport athletes that do so much and that move on to college in such an extraordinary way. But it's also, you know, the students who go into these medical health sciences programs and these very, you know, highly competitive programs, and what distinguishes them is really the volunteerism that they've done in our community, that they've been part of our Snow Angels program, or that they've been part of the Bebe Project that provides support to our food bank, or that they've done the projects in partnership with Onion Lake Cree Nation. They're really being prepared for not only a good life, but a life well lived. And that's something I think our students' families and indeed the staff at our schools can be very, very proud of, all the way to kindergarten, when we learn about kindness and we learn about helping one another. So yeah, it's a very good time to be a part of LCSD.
And lastly, Nigel, just before we wrap up, what's sort of your outlook and goal for the 2021 year?
Well, I think we're all hoping for perhaps a little bit more of our freedoms to be restored, and more of our that we don't have so many cares and so many worries. But what I would say is this is not forever, and what will define us in 2021 is the stories that our students tell their children in 20 years. And I hope the stories that they tell are about when they were home with their parents and all of them had to share the Wi-Fi, and how funny that was at times, and how they were outside more, and perhaps how families came together in this time and were even more strong. I'm hoping that those stories of 2021 that we carry with us past this pandemic, when it's over, are about faith in one another. And faith in God, and those will be the defining moments that I'll be looking for in 2021 and hoping to foster in my role here at LCSD.
Well, Nigel, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully 2021 is another great year for the Lloydminster Catholic School Division. So thank you.